Bruchim Abayim B'Shem Irgun Shir Torah Moses Boston. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's shir. Everyone who came in person, and Noshim and the Ezra's Noshim, and everyone listening on the phone or watching on the stream. Bruchim Abayim. I'd like to remind them and give out the last call for ads in the dinner journal for upcoming annual dinner on Wednesday this week, August 18th. Perfect time to show Yakras HaTov to the Rabbanim Ushiurim you've enjoyed. To be mechazik the agudas Torah, Irgun Shir Torah worldwide throughout the year by putting an ad in the journal. Call Irgun Shir Torah at 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. I'd like to give a big yashikayach to Rabbi Pomerantz for sponsoring tonight's shir. L'chvayid Rabbi Weinberger, Shlita. Tonight we have the cover to have with us once again, Rabbi Moshe Weinberger, Rav agudas yisroel, Flatbush, and Rabbi Mesivta Sholom Shachne, and starting fresh, creating a better years. My cover to calling Rabbi Weinberger for tonight's Josh.
Vilna Gaon says, Eish is chayil mi yimtza. So the Vilna Gaon says the Gematria of chayil is 48. There's 48 ways to be kind of Torah. We know that the Eish is chayil is a mashal on Torah. Who possesses 48 midas? Who has all 48? Eish is chayil mi yimtza. But then at the end it says, Rabbis banas asachayil. If you have a lot of Talmidei Chachamim come together, rabbis banas asachayil, they can make the 48. Because over the summer and over the past few years, we're zeicher to hear from many Rabbanim in the Irgun Shir Torah. Irgun Shir Torah, Eishes is Rashi Tevis, Irgun Shir Torah. So all the Rabbanim together that you've heard drushes from create rabbis banas asu chayil. So Irgun Shir Torah has brought together every person that speaks has his midah, has his oifen, and every person has their own heart. You bring everyone together, someone along the way hopefully will get inspired. But there's an interesting thing about getting inspired. You're talking about the fresh start, starting fresh, you have to want. There's a very interesting question that the Mishnah Melech poses in Hilchos Mechira. The halach is if I come over to you with a gun and say, if you don't sell me this property, if you don't give me this property, I'm going to kill you. So you say, okay, it's a good sale. A sale under the threat of death is a good sale. The Gemara says in Shabbos that HaKadosh Baruch Hu took the mountain and put it on top of Klal Yisrael and threatened them that if they're not makabel the Torah, he's going to put the mountain on top of them. Omer Abacha Bayakov Mikan Meidor Rabel Yisrael. Klal Yisrael has an excuse. We were forced into accepting the Torah. So the Mishnah Malach says, 1 second. If you force someone under duress, it's a good sale. And whatever he gave you is a good nesina. So if so, even though we're under force, but since it was the threat of death, the halacha should be that our Kabbalas HaTorah was a good Kabbalas HaTorah. Why does Rabbi Acha Bar Yaakov say that we have an excuse? Mikam Oido Rabba L'Raisa, till we're makabel again on Purim time. So the teretz could be as follows. To sell an object, you need agreement. That's not enough to accept the Torah. You can't just agree to accept the Torah. You can't just have consent. You need ratzon. You need willingness. You have to want. You can't force want. Force consent. Yes, if you'll take that gun out of my back, I'd be very happy to give you my house in Flatbush. But Torah can't have consent of agreement. You have to have ratzon. You have to have a will. You can't force ratzon. So when it comes to inspire someone, we all know that we want to change and want to get better. There's a lot of things that are going to come up along the way. They're going to detract us, that might stop us, or that might veer us away from where we really want to go. But if we have Ratzon, Rav Shach said, said, that if someone makes a Kabbalah 100%, he will not go back on that Kabbalah. He says the reason why people sometimes make a Kabbalah and then things go out of sorts because it wasn't 100%. A person who decides to stop smoking, 98%, those 2% are going to come back to haunt him. So if a person wants to start something new, the Kabbalah has to be 100%. So given a Chassidish Yid, Chabadska Chassid, a tremendous mashpia. He's already an elder Yid. Someone walked in one day and he was sitting in his seat and he looked very depressed. So he went over to him and said, "What's bothering you?" He said, "I'm going soon to Eilam Elyon and I'm making a cheshbon and nefesh." So I said, "Mendel, what do you have to make a cheshbon and nefesh?" He said, "I'll tell you. I get up every day, I say my Dani, I wash Negel Vasa, I do a mitzvah, I put it in my sack. I go daven, I put on tefillin, thank you, and I put it in my sack." And he went through the whole day, how he learns, and how he's mashpia, and how he davens mincha, and how he davens marav, and how he stays up late. So he asked him, he says, "So Rebbe, what are you worried about?" The problem is, I put all these mitzvahs in a sack. I don't know if I put the mitzvahs in myself. It's got to go in. I heard in my day 500 shmuzim from my Rosh Yeshivas, 1,000. I don't know how many I could say over. But I can tell you that there's an impression there. But you have to allow the inspiration to come through. And that's probably the first. Are you willing? If someone would sit down with you now and convince you to make a major change in your life, would you be able to do it? And they showed you as the truth. Would you be able to change? Are you willing to change? And this is what we're dealing with. It's coming 3 weeks before Rosh Hashanah. It's easy to say, hard to believe. So when we were younger and we played baseball and we had an argument, if we were safe on first or out at first, 10 people said safe and 10 people said out. The thing called a do-over. You got to do it over. In the Sanatoik, we say, "V'chaisim yad kol adam boy." What exactly is in the autograph there? There's a signature. V'chaisim yad kol adam boy. What does that mean? A yid stellt sich arauf by the Bayri Eilam. Rosh Hashanah, he says, "Ribono shel Olam, you give me a good year, I promise you A, B, C, D, E." Unbelievable. In Yom Kippur, he says, "I'm never doing A, B, C, D again." Comes the next year, and he says, "Ribono shel Olam, I need a good year." So let's say a person, you go to the grocery store, it's on credit. And then at the end of the year, you want more credit. He takes out the IOU from the year before and says, "You didn't pay up yet." V'chaisim yad kol adam boy, the IOU from last year is still here, Dr. Beinishlam. You said, you promised, where is it? V'chaisim yad kol adam boy. Avinu Malkeinu, Mechaik barachamecha rabim kol shitrei chayvusenu. We want to start new. We want to start fresh. We're having a do-over, Rabbi Nishlam. And Hashem says, yes. Are you ready? Are we ready to do things over again or not? Truth to be told, the side of Rosh Hashanah is emes. Kiata emes. Udvarach emes. It's all about facing the truth. And facing the truth is not always an easy thing to do. The Beditchev at Ketrofen mit Ayid, he met a Jew. He was eating on Tisha B'Av. So he asked him, "Do you know today's Tisha B'Av?" He says, "Yes." "Are you sick? And the Rav told you to eat?" He says, "No, I'm healthy." So Beditchev looks up to Rabbi Shem, Cook the Yid. I gave him 2 excuses why he's eating on Tisha B'Av, and he doesn't veer from the truth. I'd leave the emes. Emes can sometimes be very punishing and very frightening. Because we have to start over again. We have to look at the emes. I'd like to say a little bit about a mahalach maybe, and how we could start new and inspire ourselves to grow and become better. Rosh Hashanah is the day that Ribbono Shel Olam created the world. No. He created the world on Chafei Elul, on the 25th of Elul. Man was created on Rosh Hashanah. And Ribbono Shel Olam said, Nasa Adam, Loshen Rabim, we should make man. Let us make man. Rashi tells us, he spoke to the Malachim, and he wanted to show that even a Gadol, if nothing else, we got an amen. That's not everything else is something. Nasa Adam. Nasa Adam. So Rashi says he went to the Malachim to show even a Gadol should ask. Rabbi Chanan brings from the Zohar. Man was created after all the animals were created. So he went to all the animals and said, put your power into this creation called man. Lion, deer, hyena, birds, whatever you want. Nasa Adam. So a man is a walking zoo. He's a gan chayot, that's what he is. So what do you do about that? Saif kol adam, es elakim yorei. If he has your shemayim, that's the warden on the Nasa Adam. That's the Nasa Lashon Rab. If not, we know what man can be if there is no Yiras Shemayim. We have seen the worst of man. But I would like to say perhaps a new pshat in Nasa Adam. Years ago, there was a yid by the name of Mendel Bayless. And Mendel Bayless was accused by the Russian government of killing a Goyish child for the sake of getting blood from matzahs on Pesach. And this trial was the show trial of the century, where the Goyim were going to prove that the Jews do not hold that a Goy is a human being. And using his blood for Pesach Digamatzahs, totally acceptable. So the Talmud was on trial. The Gemara was on trial. And they got experts, big quotation mark because they weren't, to bring proofs from various places in the Gemara that Klal Yisrael doesn't think of Goyim as people. One of the Gemara says, Atem kriyim adam, ve'einu misaylim kriyim adam. You're called man, and the Goyim are not called man. You're called man. And they were going to bring this to court. And it wasn't televised, it wasn't live streamed, but the whole world would know. Atem kriyim adam. So he went to Rabbi Shapiro to find out what that means. And Rabbi Shapiro says it means as follows. Look at this trial by Mendel Bayless. The whole Klal Yisrael was davening, supporting it, whatever possible. Because Klal Yisrael is one Adam. Atem kriyim Adam, singular. The nations of the world is a conglomeration. It's not one chefza. It's not a monolith. Klal Yisrael is one being. That's what Klal Yisrael is. Atem kriyim Adam. You are called Adam. That's and that's what you should say in court. 2 different versions, if ever brought up in court or not. But the Rabbi Shapiro said this, is documented. Mayridik. So now I want to go back to Nasa Adam. I would like to perhaps say another taich. How do you make a man? How do you make one chefza? Everyone has to contribute. You've got to look at Klal Yisrael as one being. People sometimes sell themselves very short in this world. Who am I? What am I? And we say it, mechayenu, mechazdenu. But it doesn't mean you're nothing. It means compared to what Rabbi Shalom is, compared to what you could be. But you have to know you're part of a rabbim. And you carry a responsibility for a rabbim. It says that we go past Rabbi Shalom kivakora asroya edroi mavit soinoi tacha shiftoi. So there we are. We're walking by. And when do you do that? You have 10 animals. You have a corral. You have to give meiser behem. Every 10th one goes for a carbon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 9. The 10th one gets a little red mark. And number 9 walks out and thinks nothing happened. But you know what number 9 did? Number 9 made 10 become a carbon. So a person has to realize that what he does in life has an effect on the whole Klal Yisrael. We blow a shofar on Rosh Hashanah. Why do you blow shofar? And the Rambam says, because in the course of the year, a person loses emes. That's his lunch. You lose the truth. A person was in Switzerland. He saw beautiful mountains, snow-capped mountains. He saw the fresh air. He saw the sheep grazing. It was wonderful. And then he took off his goggles. He was on the second floor of his $1,500 one-bedroom apartment in Flatbush. It's virtual reality. We live in a world of virtual reality. The Stipler brings down from the Gemara, Hordis had birds. Hordis, the king, had birds. And these birds were able to talk. And a whole day they said, king, 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 king. That's what they said a whole day. These birds talked. The birds talked Ayadei Kishiv, says the Stipler. It was magic. Hordis was really a slave. He wasn't supposed to be a king. But Hordis had these birds singing king, king, king to reinforce that which was not true. And that's the way some people we live. We lose. We had the emes Rosh Hashanah. We had it in the palm of our hands. For one day we saw it, we felt it, we heard it, we lived it. And then we're back into the world. And now it's time to get the emes back. The simcha of the truth, the simcha of living a life that's real is unbelievable. A person has a guf and neshama. I mean, great, they should be on the same page. And then a person has simcha. A person has stress someone wants to find. When you're in one place, you think should be somewhere else. But if where you're supposed to be, and you know the truth, the Goyim say, Shuvi Shuvi Ashalamas, Shuvi Shuvi Sechsabach. Come. We'll make you governors, we'll make you senators, we'll make you whatever you want. We'll make you baseball players. Whatever you want, we'll make you. And Klal Yisrael answers, what can you give me, Kimachaylis HaMachanayim? What can you give me like the simcha of the camps? What does that mean? The dancing of the camps. Zok the Medrash, it goes under the golem. What was a flag? Every shaven had its mission. What could be happier than knowing that what you're doing is the exact thing you're supposed to be doing? And that's the power of finding the emes in our lives. I want to say something from Rav Hutner, a nifla dika deher. We say Yosef went out of prison was Rosh Hashanah. Because it says, Chayk Yisrael hu mishpat lalakei Yaakov. That's our Rosh Hashanah pasuk. And then it says, Eidus b'Yosef samay al haaretz Mitzrayim. Yosef went down. Yosef went out of prison on Rosh Hashanah. And the Maharsha says, because we're all coming out of prison on Rosh Hashanah. We're all in prison. We have to come out of prison. Maybe it's a man-made prison. Maybe we made the prison ourselves. But that's Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, Avodim begin to go back after serving their term. Rosh Hashanah. Then it says, Svas lo yodati eshmor. And that night, the Malach came and taught Yosef 70 languages. Because to be a king, you had to know 70 languages. But why does it put it in this pasuk that talks about Yosef coming out of prison, Rosh Hashanah, then it says he taught Yosef 70 languages? What's the connection? Listen what Rav Hutner says. Dr. Rav Hutner says, man was created to be a communicator. Man was supposed to relate to each other. You do that by speaking to each other. What happened by the Dor HaFlaga, when they went ahead and built the tower to try to attack Hashem, Hashem then made 70 languages. Really, I'll tell you in Seichel, you try to tell me how there was ever 70 languages. If not for the Torah, there's no explanation. How did 70 languages come? People started talking different. One person spoke one way and his children spoke the same way. How did 70 languages come? Rabbi Moshe tells us in the Torah, it came because of Migdal Bavel. That is a downsizing of the greatness of man. Man is supposed to be a communicator. Men are supposed to be able to relate to each other. Now I'm speaking French, you're speaking Spanish. It's a downsizing the godless of man. Giving someone 70 languages creates Yosef back into being an Adam. It makes Yosef back into being a man. It's a Nasa Adam. That's Rosh Hashanah dik. Rosh Hashanah, man comes back to his greatness. And that's the greatness of the 70 languages of Yosef. We can attain greatness on Rosh Hashanah. And do it by being a Nas Adam. By being part of a tzibur. By understanding that every person's action makes a difference. The Rambam says something interesting. He says on Rosh Hashanah, we blow the shofar to awaken a person from the stupor that he put himself in a whole year. Therefore, the Rambam says, a person should consider himself always 50-50. And the world is 50-50. And when he is going to do, it's going to make a difference if the world gets destroyed or not. That's looking into emes. So in the Gemara, Medrash says like this. Yisroel was a bezayin for Klal Yisrael that there were deaf people at the time of Matan Torah. So Hashem made all the deaf people here. It was a Genai for Klal Yisrael that there were people who couldn't see, blind people. So Hashem cured all the blind people. It was a Genai for Klal Yisrael that there were lame people amongst them. So Hashem cured all the lame people. I did not understand this. Why is it a shame? A person's blind, he's blind. Hashem made him blind. A person's deaf, he's deaf. Why is that called a Genai? What way is it a Genai? So maybe you're familiar with the following Maisa, but I enjoy the way it touches up this Medrash. It was a great conductor. Toscanini was his name. And Toscanini was an expert in symphonies. I don't know much about writing music, but every instrument has to be just perfect, and the exact amount of instruments have to be there. So one day Toscanini invited a student to his house, and they were listening to an operatic piece. And Toscanini says, they're missing a violin. There's 14 violins, there should be 15 violins. And the student said, that can't be. How do you know that? Sure enough, they checked up, and that was missing a violin. Because Toscanini knew that every violin is important for that symphony, and it makes a difference in the sound. Every Yid in Klal Yisrael makes a difference. If someone is blind, and he's not going to be able to makabel the Torah the way he's supposed to, it's a Genai for Klal Yisrael. We're not getting a complete Torah. If someone is deaf, or he's lame, and somehow can't be makayim the Torah, that's a Genai for Klal Yisrael. Every person in Klal Yisrael has an important part. See, even if you yourself think that you can't really change, but we need you to change. We need you to grow. We need you to start fresh. And one way to start fresh is to stop looking at yourself as just an individual. You are choshev ad l'mayid, and you make a tremendous difference. I'll tell you a fascinating word from Yonis and Eibschitz, which I think is important. 3 people said Eicha in history. Yirmiyahu, Shaya, Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu first, Shaya second, Yirmiyahu third. Zokt Rabbi Yonis and Eibschitz, there's 3 Eichas. Moshe said, Eicha, the mamish making me crazy with the Dinei Torah, that was the Eicha. Yeshaya said, Eicha ha'is l'zoina, kirya l'mana, how'd they go so off the derech? And Yirmi said, Eicha yoshva vodod, the 3 Eichas. So Rabbi Yonis is like this. Eicha stands for Eikoi. If you look in the Kinnis, it's Eikoi. Because Baruch Hu promised Avram Avinu that Klal Yisrael is going to be like the stars. So there's 3 interesting things about stars. Number 1, even if you have a telescope sometimes, you look up, 2 stars can look like one because they come very close together, and the big star dwarfs the small star till it looks like one. A second thing about stars is they have an orbit, and they go on the same orbit day in, day out. And the third thing about stars is that every star has a gravitational pull in this universe. And one star would be out of kilter. So would the entire cycle of this universe. Zok Moshe Rabbeinu, what are they doing with this Dinei Torah? Why are they having such problems getting along? Eicha, where's the Koyi Zaracha? That the older ones should be mashpi on the younger ones. Where's the agudas in Klal Yisrael? Where's the caring? We hear mices, we went through the year, we heard such terrible stories, but we've already put them on the shelf. And we forgot them, or we don't live with them. We don't feel the pain. What does it mean to feel someone else's pain? What does it mean to care about another Yid? At the Chafetz Chaim at nights he couldn't sleep because he knew what Yiddish kinder were going through on the battlefront. Couldn't sleep at night. These are great people, but we all have that in our neshama. The ability of Klal Yisrael being echad. The ability of understanding someone's pain and someone's simcha. Shteit Binyamin, when he named his child Chupim, he said, because I missed Yosef's chuppah and Yosef missed mine. Understands, Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, you feel bad Yosef didn't come to your chasna. But you feel so bad you didn't come to his? Yes. I feel bad I couldn't be misameach with him. This is what Klal Yisrael is supposed to be. One is supposed to be mashpi on the other. The 2 stars are supposed to come together. Not to have Dinei Torah, of fighting of every small item, of letting little things in our life disturb the big picture of what we're supposed to be. So Moshe says, Eicha. Yeshaya Navi comes and says, we're supposed to be a Yid, supposed to exist in every situation, be able to do mitzvahs, Mekayim Ratzon Hashem. Eicha is l'zayne keyin amana. How could it be that the tremendous emunah, tremendous loyalty that we have to Rabbeinu Shalom is lost? Eicha is l'zayne. We're running after things that really aren't part of our life. They don't fit for us. They don't fit. Not for us. Eicha is l'zayne keyin amana. And Yirmiyah says, every single Yid makes a difference. Eicha haisa. Eicha yashva vodad. Hi'ira basiyam. Where are all those Yidden? Which each one had its gravitational pull. And that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu said. We're supposed to be like a chavim. And maybe it's time to be a little bali gaiva. We have to be a bal gaiva and an onav at the same time. A bal gaiva on HaKoiches and onav klape yenim. A bal gaiva on HaKoiches and onav klape the Rabbeinu Shalom. Not a bal gaiva ba'atzim. This fellow came in one night to Shul Yom Kippur. He was saying Tefillah Zaka. He said, Ich bin agarnished, ich bin agarnished, ich bin agarnished. Good. Next day they gave out Aliyahs. And they gave him Revi and not Shlishi. And he went over to the Gabbai and said, Chutzpah, you didn't give me Shlishi. So the Gabbai says, you said you're a garnish, so you're garnished, you get Revi. He says, 1 second. When I talk to Rabbeinu Shalom, I'm a garnish, but when you speak to me, you better speak to me with respect. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a person should feel his power of Kedusha. And that power, he's a koichav. He's a star. He's a mashpia. But I want to lay to nachashtikkel. Every person exists on two levels. He's a name and a number. That's what it says about stars. Chum Shemesh Yikra, they all have a name, but they also have a number. Meine Mispalakachavim. Tell me, what's the difference between a name and a number? I'll tell you what the difference is between a name and a number. A name is individual. And a number means you're part of a crowd. Every yid has to exist on two levels. You've got to become as great as you can, and then give that over to the rabbi. That's what you have to do. You have to be a name and a number. You've got to be Yankel and Shmerel and Beryl. So it brought down, I heard really. How come we say your pasuk, Shmei Nasrei, of your name? You're going to forget your name? You're really going to forget your name? Such fright when you come to Shemaim, you forget your name. State the person comes to Shemaim and say, what's your name? My name is Moshe Mensian ben Chaim Yaakov. Taka. That's not what, you don't look like Moshe Mensian ben Chaim Yaakov. That's not what you were sent down to do. You didn't do Moshe Mensian Chaim Yaakov. So a person remembers his name. It's a schooler that when he comes to Shemaim, they should recognize him. A schooler when it comes to Shemaim, they should connect him with who he was supposed to be. That's your name. Rebel Yedes has a gewaltige kasha. What did Hashem want? Did Hashem want we should all be alike? And we shouldn't and we should just do everything around like ants? And he should have made us all the same. If Hashem wanted us to be individuals, then he should have made us each self-sufficient. I don't have to come on to anybody else. So what did Hashem want? Hashem wanted us to be like ants, a colony of ants. We do everything together. Or Hashem wanted us to be independent. Which one? Zok Rebel Yedes, Hashem wanted that we should become great and then devote that to the rabbi. We should become great and devote that to the rabbi. Become who you are and then give it to the rabbi. So a person has a name and he's a number. The Rebbe of Zishat gesagt, at Kommen in Shemaim after 120 years, Elden asked him, Zisha, why weren't you chesed like Avram Avinu? Say, I'm not Avram Avinu. Why didn't you avoid like Yitzchak? Not Yitzchak. Why weren't you Zisha? Zisha, why weren't you Zisha? That, I'm going to scare that they're going to ask that question. Why didn't I put it inside of me? Why did I leave it in the sack? Why did I get inspired? Why didn't I take that next step to become a gadol? And I want to tell you something else perhaps about stars. We said 4 things about stars already. Mashpia on each other, orbit, each one's important, and you have to be a name and a number, because every star exists as a name and a number. Every star is an individual, but it's part of a firmament in Shemayim. But if you look in the Psukim, Kadosh Baruch Hu tells Avraham Avinu, go out and look at the stars, Ko Yezaracha. He doesn't say you'll have children. Here's what he says. Go out, look at the stars, and Ko Yezaracha, because your children will also be stargazers. Your children will look up to Shemayim. Your children will live with a higher purpose. Your children will restore Adam Arishan to who he's supposed to be. Your children will incorporate between themselves as a rabbin the 48 midos that make a complete Adam, that make somebody chayil. Ko Yezaracha, that will look towards Shemayim. In a few weeks, we're here at Tekiah, Teruah, and at Tekiah. I went to Reb Sham Shafol Hirsch says the remes of Tekiah, Teruah, Tekiyahs. You know where we learned Tekiah, Teruah, Tekiah from? From traveling in the Midbar. What did a Tekiah mean? Tekiah meant we should all come together as one. And gather together was a Tekiah. Teruah meant to begin traveling. And then there was a Tekiah at the end to stop the traveling and to settle down. So the first Tekiah is a wake-up call, but that's Klal Yisrael together. We start off realizing that we're part of a rabbim. That's the tekiah. Tekiah says together, one long sound. The agudas of Klal Yisrael. Look who you belong to. Look who you can mishpia on. Look who you are. Then trua. Trua means to travel. Leave everything behind. It's time to start new. Trua is the traveling. Take a good look at yourself. Make that cheshbon in the day. From the time you wake up at night, what can you do better? What one thing you could do better? And then, when you discover that, tekiah, make it part of you. Tekiah, trua, tekiah. It says in the Shofar yisroel ad Hashem lekechas loshen yachid. And then it says, chui machem dvarim loshen rabim. It switches from yachid to rabim. You yachid, you want to be great? Then know you're part of Klal Yisrael. Care about other people. Come to the minyanim. I think about it. Summer in the city, for many people, wives aren't here. Maybe the children aren't home. It can be a very lonely time. One can fall into many pitfalls in that time. And be honest with each other. What keeps you together? You come together on a night like this. You come together, Irgun Shira Torah. You sit with a chavrusa. Chavrusa asks, where were you? What happened to you? That's the way we are. We need the guide rails of life. There's too many people walking around, and in Flatbush in particular, who are very anonymous. They're anonymous people. They come late on Shabbos. They leave early. I once got a phone call from yeshiva. Called me up about a certain person who davened by me in shul. Gave me as a reference. I didn't know he was. He happened to be a Tyree, but I didn't know he was. Came late, left early. I had no idea who he was. So I didn't want to, check up on him. So yes, somebody told me who he was. There's a lot of people, they daven in different shuls. They sit in the back. Nobody knows who they are. They're quiet. Those people need chizuk. To be part of a rabbim puts a person in a different dimension in life. Shuv yisroel Hashem lekecha. Every yachid can do it. But for that, you need lashon rabbim. Chui machem dvarim. This podium has served this summer as a chui machem dvarim. If we have the ratzon to change, if we want to be nasa adam of Rabbi Chanan, by being a nasa adam between ourselves, Kol Yisrael Raven Zeh B'Zeh, I could be Makav Mitzvah, I could be Moitzi with Shofar. Why? So the Ran says, because your mitzvah is my mitzvah. We're one person. So in my mitzvah of Shofar, I have your mitzvah of Shofar. It's one unit, Klal Yisrael. Chofetz Chaim says, it says, what are you going to do? If you hurt your foot, you're going to scream at your foot. We're all part of the same being. We're all part of that Tselem Elokim that connects us together. When we realize that, we realize our achrayus that we have. To become who we could become. To be able to give to the rabbi and give to the rabbi. Not to be Mr. Anonymous. To be the one that calls out in tzibur and mechazik to Olam just by being who you are. Just by sitting and learning Torah. I was by the kever of the Skolena Rebbe today. Pam Lapam, I get to go to Muncie, go to the kever of the Skolena Rebbe. I don't know, maybe he was a younger man, he was a bacher, young fellow. He was saying Tillim at Azan Negin. It was meiring me, doesn't like to mire me. Didn't need any schmoozing. Just watching him say to Hillim with Azan Ernstkeit. You don't have to be a mashpia by going around and trying to talk people into things. By being who you are. Sometimes you sit down, you see this balabas sitting and learning Gemara, he's finishing Masech, he's learning Mishnah. So why can't I do that? Why can't I do that? You see someone davening with great kavanah, and maybe that's you. So man, Amaisa, this yid from Texas. Texas, you know where Texas is? It's far away. Yid from Texas went down to the Kotel. And he went to Chassidish Yid, Yerushalayim Yid. And he's watching this Yerushalayim Yid. And Yerushalayim Yid is davening, mamish, and this Texas guy, not even an Orthodox fellow, gets all riled up. And he comes back to Texas, and he finds an Orthodox rabbi, and he says he wants to write a Sefer Torah, and he writes a Sefer Torah, and he winds up building a shul for them. Unbelievable. No, after 120 years, this Yerushalmi guy comes to Shemayim, and they say, we're going to give you schar. What's the schar? You built a shul in Texas. He said, I don't know where Texas is. I never heard of Texas. There must be a mistake. He says, no, you daven by the Koisel, and that made someone donate a base medrash to Texas. That's called understanding. That just by being an El Hayid, you could be mashpia. I was somewhere the other day, and a Yid was behind the counter, working in a store. And the Edelkeit, which in our tough city sometimes is missing, the Edelkeit. I remember still driving once on Avenue M, and a fellow was standing there trying to save a parking space for someone. And someone else came by and wanted that parking space. And it became a moiridik shayla halacha. Can you save a parking space for someone in Brooklyn? And it came out to almost blows. But mit an Edelkeit, the way you talk to people. I tell you, gewaltige Wort. And with this, I'll leave you. How easy is die Mashpia. Steht in Posik, Yarav Kamota, Likhi, Tizal Katal Nimrasi, Kisir Malay Desha, Vechaviva Malay Esav. So Dr. Simcha Zisel Broider like this. When a person starts learning Torah, it's sometimes very difficult. It's like rain. Rain is hard, difficult sometimes. But then, after a while, after he breaks through that initial difficulty, Tizal Katal Imrasi, it becomes like tal. Tal is pleasant. Everyone likes tal. Then something else happens. Kisiru Malidesha, Zadrashi, the Ruach makes the grass grow. The Torah changes the person. He becomes a different person. And then the last step is Chaviva Mal'esev. If you have been on a porch in the country, you look out at a tree, and there's droplets of rain on the leaves, and the sun shines through. There's almost not a more beautiful thing in the world. Zok Simcha Zisol, there's nothing more beautiful in the world than somebody who allows the Torah to form him, than a Ben Torah. And Simcha Zisol, when he used to speak to somebody, he never turned his head. He always turned his whole body, because he was Mechabed people. Shtel sich vor, the Mishnah says, Ezeu Chacham, Halaymin Mikol Adam. Chasher person, no. Right? Ezu Asher, Samech B'chalkai, Shkans Chashev. Ezu Gibar, Kaivish is Yitzray. Wow. Ezu Mechubed, Mechabed Sabriz. That means he's a Chacham already. He's an Asher already. He's a Gibar, Zakir Shalom Shvadran. That's all wonderful. But if you're not Mechabed Sabriz, if you want to be Mashpia in the Olam, Oyev Sabriz, Umakarvim L'Torah. We have to be Oyev each other, realize how much we gain from each other, and by being who we could become, we're going to be Nasa Adam this year. And Mitzvah, the Rabbi Shalom bring a Yeshua for God's Klal Yisrael. Yeshua has to be for Klal Yisrael. When the Torah was given, Nasa v'Nishma was a Tanai, because if it wasn't Achdus, there's no Torah given individuals. Torah is given to Klal Yisrael. And when there's Chinas Chinam, the Mikdash gets destroyed, because then we're individuals. And we're not individuals. We're Yechidim, they give to the Rabbim, exist as Klal Yisrael, and perhaps that's our fresh start. Perhaps we have to start looking at ourselves not as small individuals, what do, but by people who have what to contribute to the fabric of Klal Yisrael, to make Am Yisrael great, to be Nasa Odom. Mitzvah Shem will be Zeicha this year to Ksiva v'Chasima Tov.
Shem Yegin Torah. I'd like to give a big yashikar to Rabbi Weinberger for the very inspiring drosha. Rabbi say you heard the Rav, you can be helping Mechazak of the Yidden that need Chizak, the anonymous Yidden, and even the ones that are not anonymous. You can do so by sponsoring a share or putting an ad in the journal for Yegin Torah's dinner coming this Wednesday, by calling 718-851-8651, or emailing ist@yeshivanet.com, and get in a last-minute ad. Have a chelik in agudas of Torah, beginning your Torah worldwide throughout the year. I'd like to give a big yeshikach to Mendy Pomerantz for sponsoring tonight's shir, the Rabbi Weinberger. We'd like to remind once again all the men are invited to the dinner at Young Yosef Avenue K, Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Due to space limitations, the event is for men only. Yashikach to everyone for coming. V'chananya ben HaKashem, Eretz HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'zakis, es yisroel afiga hibun Torah mitzvot, shenema, alei nechofes, eman tzidke yagdol Torah v'yadeh.